Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guest. Have you ever had one of those moments where you stopped, stepped back, looked around, and said, how did I get here? Sometimes these moments can be negative. I'm sure the former governor of New York has asked himself this question. On the other hand, these moments can be very positive and a refreshing reminder of the incredible places that life can take you. I had one of these moments a couple of years ago in November of 2006. I was at a birthday party for a friend of mine named Chris. Chris was from a large Greek family, and he invited no less than 100 of his friends and family to his house. Actually, it was his brother's house for a party. Chris was a bass player, and his brother was a drummer. And of course, they had a live band at the party. They added a couple of their friends for vocals and guitar, and they played a weird sort of soul funk sound. It's kind of reminiscent of Sam Cooke, Stevie Wonder, some of my favorite artists. Of course, with such great music, there was dancing. There were kids, grandparents, everyone. So I was sitting, finishing my baklava after an incredible meal, and that was when I stepped back, looked around, and said, how did I get here? Actually, there's one thing I need to mention. This was in Clayton, which is a small suburb of Melbourne, Australia. Just 18 months prior, I had been at Duke, finishing up a degree in electrical engineering. 12 months before that, I was here in Austin, working at IBM, doing a co-op. And only 2 months before that, I was actually in Melbourne, but I hadn't met Chris or any of his family. So how then was I standing, watching a funk band and a grandmother dancing as I ate baklava? For me, the answer was rooted in 3 of my interests: engineering, traveling, and salsa dancing. When I was a junior in college, I realized that immediately I wanted to do something a little different. So I applied to jobs as a practical engineer. I applied to several jobs, actually took a position at IBM, or accepted a position at IBM. But I also applied to the Fulbright program. Many of you are familiar with that from some of the people we've had here, people that are interested in studying English here and learning to teach English. But the Fulbright program also funds students who want to do postgraduate research in numerous countries around the world. So I applied for that and actually was awarded one of those grants. So I called my manager at IBM and got my full-time position commuted to a co-op. Did that for a few months, and then in January 7th, 2006, I boarded a plane in LA, headed for Melbourne. I arrived with 2 basic goals. The first was the research. I was working at a world-renowned hearing institute in Melbourne, doing research on algorithms to improve music perception for deaf patients. The other was more interesting for me personally, was just to travel and explore in Australia. And my professors were completely supportive of this. So I spent no less than 8 weeks traveling and experiencing the country. I snorkeled in the Great Barrier Reef. I walked the steps of the Sydney Opera House. I gazed at the Harbour Bridge. Spent a week road trip in New Zealand, a road trip in Tasmania. And I also did quite a bit of salsa dancing. Now, it's a little bit odd to be doing salsa dancing in Australia, but it's something that I started doing in college, and I wanted to continue it. So I made an effort to find clubs. There were several clubs that I found. One in particular was the Nightcat. And every Sunday night at the Nightcat, there was a live band. So a couple of friends and I would go there pretty regularly. And on one particular night, in September, I believe it was, there was a live band called San Lazaro. And San Lazaro had a very cute timbales player who turned out to be single. And with the support of a couple of my friends, I got up enough courage to go talk to her. And surprisingly, surprisingly it went pretty well. And we exchanged numbers, and within a few weeks, we started a relationship. Now, with her being a musician, I ended up traveling to almost every corner of Melbourne, seeing some of her shows as she played for San Lazaro and some of the various other bands that she played with. And I also traveled with her when she supported her friends in different bands. One of those bands was called Sure Shock. Sure Shock was founded by Chris and Nick, the 2 Greek guys whose birthday party I'd gone to. So this is, of course, how I ended up munching on baklava, watching Nick's grandmother dance to funk music, while they played a Stevie Wonder rendition of Happy Birthday. So to answer the question, how in the world did I end up in Clayton, Australia, listening to funk music, watching people dance? For me, it was rather simple. I simply pursued my interest, engineering, traveling, and salsa dancing. And for me, it led to an incredible experience and one of the greatest journeys of my life. I returned from Australia in December of that year with a master's degree, some great stories, some great pictures, some incredible friends, and most importantly, a renewed belief in the incredible places that life can take you. Mr. Toastmaster?